Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Reinke and Anna Wells. We're the editors of Manufacturing.net and Industrial Equipment News, and we each have more than 20 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we cover the 5 biggest stories in manufacturing and discuss the implications they have on the industry moving forward. But before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by giving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email, the podcast, in the subject line. We're also live every Thursday, so subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine so you can get a notification whenever we go live, and then give us that little thumbs up while you're there. Matthew, little thumbs up? Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Anna, it's good to have you back. How was the road?
It was good, as the road is. How was the podcast?
The podcast was great. I do really like Nolan's, how Nolan approaches the podcast. Where it's just like, Nolan, what do you think about this? You know, I was thinking about that, and I thought about it this way. How do you think about that?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right, man, I'm ready. I was like, at first, I wasn't ready for the that tactic. And then, you know, you kind of lean into it, and you're like, oh, that's right. It's Nolan, not Anna. Let's go.
Always answer a question with a question.
Yeah.
I can try it.
Could you? No. No, it's just, it's good to have you back. And you said that PAC was crazy this year.
Yeah, PAC Expo, huge show.
Yeah.
I hadn't been to it in a couple of years. It was in the Las Vegas Convention Center. And man, oh man, it was like just, I think I walked 100 miles and didn't even come close to touching all the people that I wanted to see. Did not fit it all in, but we did our best. It was a good show.
What really set it for me was, you said it was a huge show, and I'm like, oh, okay, big trade show, revolve into those. And then you're like, as big or bigger than IMTS, and I'm like, oh, okay.
It was like IMTS size.
Colossal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was big.
And not to take anything from Nolan, I thought he did a great job in your absence. It's just a different vibe, man.
Yeah,
just a different vibe. Jeff, how you doing this week?
I'm all right. Yourself?
Good. Thanks for the vibe check. I appreciate that. No, I'm doing great. I think that the caffeine onset blindness is subsiding, and so we're going to be all right.
That will make it much easier to read the teleprompter.
Yeah.
No blaming the teleprompter.
Yeah.
David.
And also caffeine-induced blindness is not a thing.
It might be. It might be related to dehydration. I don't know. We'll look it up later.
Yeah.
We'll have our research department on it.
We're all going on this journey together.
Let's look it up later at the hospital.
Let's take the ride. As I'm sipping on that charcoal drink they give you. All right. Well, before we jump into our first story this week, we have a word from our sponsor, Redzone. This week's episode is brought to you by Redzone. In today's manufacturing environment, challenges are evolving quickly, and businesses who aren't taking proactive steps to mitigate them risk falling behind. With that, businesses are desperate to target OEE, improve staffing and retention. Oh, wait. Nope, I got that totally wrong. Jeff, you called that. All right. With that, businesses are desperate to target OEE, improve staffing and retention, control costs, and enhance culture. That's what I was going to do. In this exclusive video, Claremont Foods discusses some of the exciting ways in which manufacturers are leveraging the latest tools to make productivity gains. So, watch Claremont Foods shares the secret to OEE right now. You can find a copy of that to download in the live chat as well as the body copy. All right. Our first story this week. BlueOval accused of making employees work off the clock. Tell me if you've heard this one before. Former employees are suing BlueOval SK, the EV battery making joint venture owned by Ford and Korean manufacturer SK On. The plaintiffs, which include a former production operator and a production technician, say the company violated the Fair Labor Standards Act and other state laws. It all comes down to mandatory pre-shift work that hourly employees who are eligible for overtime pay are required to do. They also, quote, must walk hundreds of yards to get to their workstation. BlueOval SK only pays workers for scheduled time rather than actual time worked. For example, workers must put on PPE like booties before shifts. And because the factory is so big, those hundreds of yards, it can take employees up to 15 minutes to walk to their stations. Once they're there, they must also perform pre-shift work on machines. The lawsuit also alleges that BlueOval SK alters and rounds workers' clock in and clock out times. Just a mess. Jeff, this plant in Kentucky just started commercial production in August. Is this growing pains or cheating the workers to save a buck?
Somewhere in the middle, I feel like.
Yeah.
It just seems like this is a situation where somebody is drawing a line or there's some sort of turf battle going on here that no one wants to concede, when in the reality is, this plant has been up and running for less than 2 months. They've probably got some sort of just production flow dynamics that they need to work through. Mm-hmm. But when you're constantly asking about it, requesting a change, what can we do about this, and you're being ignored, it feels like that's maybe what was going on here. Mm-hmm. Or it wasn't seen as a priority by upper management. I'm not sure. But when you look at all of the legalities here, and you mentioned the FLSA, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. I think where it comes down to is really the state of Kentucky and how you define stuff like reporting time pay versus what is integral and indispensable time. Mm-hmm. And there's these different definitions in terms of what employees should be paid for and what they shouldn't be. If you want them to put these booties on and then walk 15 minutes before they can clock in, there's got to be a simple fix here.
Yeah.
Like this is too important, too big of a deal for both SK and especially for Ford to let something like this potentially put a black eye on a very important project. These are batteries that they're making at these facilities that are going into the F-150 Lightning. Mm. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
So it just feels like there is a very simple compromise here, whether it's working through some of these legalities in terms of how you define when people start getting paid or when they need to show up. I understand the walk thing is a big deal. I watched a couple of videos about this facility for like the first day, and they're like, this place is enormous.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't have been a surprise at this point when you're looking at hourly workers.
Yeah.
The safety precaution, all those things where they're clocking in again. There's something in the middle here that I think that can be worked out. It's really unfortunate that it had to start with a lawsuit.
No, well, and I get it, right? Like you start thinking 15 minutes before and after each shift for each worker, and you start thinking, okay, there could be an incredible cost savings there. But I think the fix is simple, right? Like I feel I've lived this before, right? And I think it will always remain trash. When I got to work and I had to change into PPE, and my job didn't start until I got to that machine and started working, I thought that was garbage, right? Whereas other jobs that I had where there's a time clock at the door, you hit that time clock, you're working, and there's that switch,
Well, I think this is also a little bit about managing expectations. If it's explained to employees beforehand saying, okay, look, this is just the deal. You're going to have to get here. I know you won't clock in until 8 o'clock, but you have to be here at 7:30 because you need to do these things. That's understood as part of the job going into it, as opposed to, wait a minute. I'm here like 15, 20 minutes. I'm not getting paid for this. It goes both ways. That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
A sort of, explaining that beforehand, I think, can also go a long way.
Well, and just in terms of efficiency, there's got to be a faster way to get people to their workstations.
Yeah.
Anna, when you look at what's going on at BlueOval SK, I get it. There are a lot of growing pains. It's a brand new, huge facility. But there have been some issues there in terms of, there's ongoing union battle right now. There have been issues with mold in the past, PPE problems. Is this, in your opinion, are they still just kind of ironing things out in Kentucky?
Maybe. I mean, it's hard to know if this is an actual corporate policy or if this is something that's just happening on site with management. I think that's kind of what you're getting at there, Jeff. And I took the same thing away. Is this somebody just, this is how we're doing it, but they maybe need to reevaluate that. When you look at the legal precedent, I know you said that if it's explained to you that you have to come at 7:30, even though you don't get to clock in till 8, legally speaking, that doesn't really fly in a lot of cases. That there's a lot of state laws that target this, and we've seen a lot of companies go through similar scenarios. One that came to mind right away when I read this was Amazon. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys remember them they've faced quite a few lawsuits over the years about policies that they've had over uniform donning time. During COVID, they had policies where they were requiring these health screenings where employees were waiting in line for
that's right,
almost anywhere up to 20 to 60 minutes to be screened to go in. They were not being paid for that. having to, like in this case too, the pre-work instructions, things like that. Amazon's dealt with this a lot. So Amazon has generally not fared well in these cases when they have been sued. It's individual states' laws are a factor here, but the company has wound up settling in a lot of cases where they're having to provide back pay. This is to the tune of millions of dollars. Typically, if it's considered a principal activity to the role that you have, then it is something that they are required to pay you for. And I read about another case when I was reviewing this. The Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas went through a similar situation where they were sued because people were coming into work and they were required to put on a uniform on site. And the determination there was if you don't give your employees the option to take that uniform home and put it on at home before they arrive, then you do have to pay them for that. So, when you're looking at so much established precedent, I was also surprised that it would be something that would, it seemed unlikely that it would be a corporate policy because it's too easy to force them to pay back pay or to get sued, which is nobody wants to deal with that. The legal fees alone are just is a huge distraction to everyone. So I do wonder if it was just somebody on site thinking like, no, this is how we're doing it here. You have to clock in when you're done, and maybe they just didn't know the legal ramifications of that. I'm not sure.
Well, and the city or the facility doesn't need another black guy.
No, it doesn't. And a protracted legal case, I mean, none of that is helpful, especially if it's very, very clearly laid out already in the law. Another thing that I found interesting, and this is just as an aside, but I read a legal take on this. It wasn't this specific scenario, but is, typical
type of situation.
Yeah, happening in the past. And the person who wrote it, it was like a law firm. They said that generally, if your employment environment is unionized, your employees can bargain away their rights to payment for time spent changing clothes on the work site through a union contract, which I thought was interesting because then that would relieve the manufacturer of their duty to pay people for that time. So I just thought it was an interesting, like kind of a converse scenario because you see firms looking at unionization as being like how it impacts them in a negative way. Hey, maybe there's another side to that.
No, I thought because they're going through that union spat, I thought that this is ideally something that a union would either help fix in terms of a problem or I guess bargain away for some other chip.
If they can get something better, I don't know.
Well, and I mentioned another black guy because this facility, again, and think about it, this came to light just a couple of months after they opened. This could have been a much, let's say, larger potential penalty in terms of total employees if it was over a longer period of time. But this facility has already faced complaints over bat infestations, mold, fires, and exposures to dangerous chemicals. And like I said previously, a lack of PPE. So, they've already had to put out a lot of, metaphorical and literal fires. So it's, I don't know. I understand that you're trying to get this facility online and up to speed, but it is kind of surprising when you see a Ford involved in this type of venture with these kind of things that you would see like normal day one box checking kind of falling along the wayside. Isn't that kind of surprising to you, or is that just...
Well, I think what happens in a lot of these instances is when employees don't feel like they're being heard, all of these things compound and they become bigger issues than potentially what they are. I'm not saying I want bats flying around my workplace, but if this is this cavernous, huge building and there's two of them, animals get inside. That happens. And some of these other things, I don't know the severity of them when it comes to mold. Obviously, you want to address that. Fires, those are big deals. But again, if they're potentially smaller things that were handled and managed very quickly, they can still escalate in somebody's mind when, again, you're not being something like this, that this significance isn't being addressed.
I mean, that's actually a really good point, just in terms of, because I looked into the mold problem in particular, and that was basically when equipment was arriving, the crates were covered in mold. And so that's a relatively small issue, right? But if handled appropriately, if these smaller issues were handled like in a quickly and appropriately, maybe this type of situation doesn't blow up as fast and furious as it actually did, because they feel like overall they're going to be taken care of.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Our next most popular story this week. If Trump's America First program works, where will we get the workers? In his latest article, exclusive to Industrial Equipment News, author Michael Collins says President Donald Trump's America First program might just lead to a rush of reshoring, foreign direct investment, and jobs. But he says the inconvenient truth is that America is not ready to reshore production because we are facing serious workforce shortages in almost all manufacturing industries. In most cases, the talent just doesn't exist. So, Collins says manufacturing is going to have to develop training that gives people the physical skills to do these high-tech jobs. Part of the problem is that the U.S. has treated workforce development programs as a form of welfare, according to Collins. The U.S. spends less on vocational training than nearly every other industrialized nation. He says it's just 0.1% of our GDP. Collins gives several reasons why young people aren't interested in manufacturing. We've heard them all before. The emphasis on college over factory work, the dying industrial problem, or the seeing manufacturing as a dying industry, as well as wages. For example, the median wage for machinists in America is $50,840 a year. It takes 8,000 hours of apprenticeship training or apprentice training to be awarded a journeyman certificate to be a machinist. Many young people view the years of training to become a machinist versus the wages as just not worth it. So, now for the fixes. Tuition is so high that students are now looking for a new path, and Collins says manufacturers need to promote the skilled trades by offering paid apprenticeships, on-the-job training to earn a journey-level card, benefits while earning a livable wage, avoidance of student loan debt, and highlighting clear career paths and advancement opportunities. This isn't just a job, it's a career. Manufacturing is not going to change its bad image unless it can reduce outsourcing, quit buying machining services, tool and die, molds, and foundry products from Southeast Asia, and, Collins says, prove to recruits that there is some semblance of job security. And median wages need to be better, or at least comparable to those at the nearest Amazon distribution center. Jeff, Mike says this needs to change, and at least he gives a few levers that we can pull to make it happen.
Yeah, and I was really encouraged by the fact that this was so highly engaged with as far as a piece of content on our site, because we've been talking about this on this podcast since day one.
Yeah,
whenever they talked about all the reshoring. So this is encouraging to see more people looking at this type of content. I think Mike has a lot of great stuff here. This is a really, really good article. Definitely recommend if you haven't seen it to take a look. The couple of things that I thought were interesting, especially when he talks about the emphasis on college. Having 3 kids just gone through high school, I can definitely support the fact that there's a disproportionate amount of attention paid to a 4-year college education as opposed to going a different route by the high school. They're putting more focus on that. And I think that's because there is a cultural appreciation for the fact that when you throw out a stat saying Middleton High School had X percentage of students go on to get a 4-year degree, there's more cachet to that, in their opinion. And I think that's something we have to work with and understand that there is a competitive dynamic there, okay? There is as manufacturing, we're competing against that 4-year school and the perception that it's an advanced way to go. And it's not. It really isn't. I think there's something right for everybody, and it's about figuring that out. It's also getting past that dynamic of my dad, who's a tool and die maker, your dad was in manufacturing as well, saying, you can do better. Do better than what I did. Go to school, do all those types of things. And now I think we've got a shift where it's like, figure out where you fit in. It doesn't have to, it's not a better or worse thing. It's what's better for you individually. So we're getting better there. But I think we're also in manufacturing, we're competing with a lot of the trades. When we look at vocational school, there's a lot more kids going into plumbing, HVAC, masonry, construction, all electrical work, all of those things, because in my opinion, they're hands-on. They're getting their hands right in there on what they're working on, and they know right away if they like it or they don't. And I think that's very beneficial. I just know from owning a home, you just out of necessity, you have to do more of these things and figure it out, and you figure out what you're going to hire a guy for and what you can do. And I think that's where sometimes manufacturing misses the boat, because some of these jobs that are benefited by having somebody with a VOTech degree, you can't get that hands-on experience at an introductory level. You're saying, you know what, I think robotics is cool. I'd like to work in automation. I think this is a good fit for me. And you go through in Votech and you get that degree, maybe without as much hands-on stuff. If we can get kids into some of these factories where they're actually messing around with this stuff, which is some of the STEM programs, which, and Mike talks about it in this article, have seen significant funding cuts.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem as well. More hands-on, embrace who your competitors are for this talent, and I think that's going to help manufacturing a lot going forward too.
Well, and trades as a competitor, but also the trades have a huge skills gap as well. But do you think part of that is if you go into the trades, there's the clear career trajectory. You start here, you work X amount of time, you end there.
The one thing that I think the trades really have working for them right now, and all this stuff that we've learned with Gen Z, is that overwhelming desire for a sense of accomplishment.
No, that's
in
true.
other words, when you fix something, if you're an electrician, again, any of those trades, when you do something, you can see, I did that.
Yeah.
And I think there is that great sense of fulfillment in doing that. That's hard to equate to some of the things we do in manufacturing, because you can say, I played my part in getting that product out the door eventually to the end user. It's not the same thing. It's not always a finished product. Sometimes it's a system, a component, or just part of the process.
Yeah.
So maybe there's not always that very easy to see sense of what you just did. And I think the trades do offer that. So I think the younger generation is going to be potentially, that may appeal to them on the offset, on the first impression. That's why we need to get them in there doing stuff and explain a little bit more what manufacturing is about to compete for some of this talent.
How they're give them a better understanding of how they're contributing to the greater good.
Yeah.
So we all know, like you said, that this is not a new problem, right? And one of the points, Anna, that really stood out to me in the article was that Collins talks about how he still has these Deloitte surveys going back to 1990, which predict the need for skilled manufacturing workers and the increasing skills gap. And it's wild to me that he has those surveys starting as early as 1990. And that's right when we start seeing, kind of the end of tech education and kind of pulling that track out of high schools. And to me, it's kind of a no-brainer that we are where we are in terms of a lack of skilled workers and this gap that we've known about for the better part of 30 years that continues widening.
Yeah, it does. And, I think it's unfortunately true that creating more jobs when there are already so many that are going unfilled, it does feel like we're hiding our heads in the sand a little bit and pretending that there's all upside to this idea of reshoring all these jobs when we know that it's not. And I'm not blaming one side for the politicking. Everyone's been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate the list that Mike Collins laid out here, the challenges. I think where I would try to add a little bit of nuance is around this point about perception. He talks about people's perception of manufacturing being a dying industry. I do think that is somewhat true. You see a lot of headlines about layoffs and shutdowns and things like that, about outsourcing. It does have this sort of antiquated sheen to it that this is an industry that's leaving America, that it's dying, right? Mm-hmm. I do think there are other perception issues that do need to be addressed and that maybe bear a little bit more weight in these circumstances in terms of targeting a younger audience or a younger person to try to get into this field. One of the things I see a lot is that for millennials and younger, I think people who've seen their parents and their grandparents work factory jobs, non-ergonomic, super hard factory jobs, like machinists are mentioned in the article. Like that is a job that takes a physical toll, right? Mm-hmm. So you're watching your dad get a shoulder replacement at age 60 because he did this job.
Because he was pulling a tool out of a machine for
40 years. Yeah. I think that has a big impact on people. Mm-hmm. I think there's not enough talk about how manufacturing has been modernized to the point where it is more ergonomic. Yeah.
Now a robot pulls that tool out of the machine for you.
Well, I mean, like if younger folks are viewing these jobs as hard, like just really hard work, and you can get paid roughly the same to operate a cash register at Costco or, I can see why people are hesitant to look at that. And, some of the points that you were getting at too, I think are important, Jeff, about like the difference between trades work. Like, we know what an electrician does. We know what a plumber does. Manufacturing, I think, is a little bit more abstract.
Yeah.
Every plant is different. Every function is different. People may be looking at this and thinking like, well, I don't know. Is it dirty? Is it hard? Is it, is it boring? Like, they don't really necessarily know without getting in a plant and giving it a chance what that is. And I think that is a gap too in like the almost like the conversion in that process that's just not being addressed. And you can't kneecap these programs. You can't cut the middle out of these programs that are helping people get on site in factories and see what they actually do, or learning hands-on work in school or at a tech school or whatever. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth and say you want to bring these jobs back and then not support the growth of the workforce. So yeah, there's certainly some things that can be done. Will they be done in lockstep with this reshoring effort? I don't know. I mean, I think that's where everyone is at right now in the industry, being like, okay, wait, maybe pump the brakes a little bit and help us catch up, because everyone that I talked to this week too, the biggest issue for everyone still is workforce.
Yeah.
Their growth is being hampered by the fact that they cannot fill seats, for lack of a better term, in their factories to try to get all this done. So figure that out first before we try to pile on more and more and more jobs just for the sake of it.
They can't fill the booties.
They can't.
It's, we need a reboot of dirty jobs. That's like clean jobs that are exciting and fulfilling.
Right.
Clean
Jobs.
Clean Jobs.
By David Manti.
It's neat. Let's all do it together. So another part of the article got into what President Trump's solution is, and it's called America's Talent Strategy, Building the Workforce for the Golden Age. That includes emphasizing skilled trades and alternatives to four-year degrees, prioritizing and expanding apprenticeship programs, and modernizing career and technical education, or CTE, programs. The Department of Labor is actually charged with finding more than 1 million new active apprentices annually in high-demand fields like manufacturing and the skilled trades. In June 2025, the U.S. Department of Labor awarded nearly $84 million in grants to increase the capacity of registered apprenticeship programs, which Collins then says is simply not enough money to make it happen. Some federal funding for apprenticeship programs and apprenticeship-related research projects has also been caught up in the administration's efforts to downsize government and curtail DEI work. So, kind of similar to the tariff program that the industry is wrestling with, this apprenticeship initiative has kind of been inconsistent and contradictory at times. And I think that really sends a mixed message with a really good plan that just needs the money and resources to make it work, right? It's sometimes it can't just be bluster, Jeff,
What's a bigger issue too? I mean, I look at the NAM site quite a bit, and the National Association of Manufacturers, for a while when they looked at open jobs in manufacturing, it was right around that 250,000. It's ballooned to over 430,000 open positions right now. So this is something we need to address soon.
Yeah, and projected, it's like what they were saying in it's projected to be like 1.9 million or something by 2033. So let's get on it, throw the resources at it. And I do agree, like bringing back vocational schools, having tech education in high school is a big important part of that. And I do understand that the whole No Child Left Behind movement really removed a lot of that from schools. And it's time for it to go back, and it can't just be kind of piecemeal. We hear about it on an anecdotal basis in different communities. I feel like it's got to be a little bit more widespread. All right. Our next most popular story. Also, I feel like, on his next column, I almost want to do like an exclusive podcast just so we could like take every part of it out, because that could be its own podcast. Right?
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
All right. Our next most popular story. Thieves steal $1 million worth of craft whiskey from Washington Distillery. Thieves recently targeted 12,000 bottles of craft whiskey, about $1 million worth of product, in a rare whiskey heist. The thieves stole bottles of Westland Distillery's first 10-year Garyana whiskey, a single malt the distillers had been working on for more than a decade. The bottles disappeared July 31st, my brother's birthday, which is probably why it went so bad, when someone in a freight truck showed up at a warehouse in Burlington, Washington, with the right paperwork for a shipment that was supposed to be going to New Jersey. Those bottles, They never made it to Jersey, Jeff. The bottles are irreplaceable, which might actually make it pretty hard to move them on the black market. The Garyana was aged in casks made from an oak tree that primarily grows in the Pacific Northwest. Fun fact, still can't drink them. The company has taken additional steps to protect its supply chain. And right now, they say they're focusing on serving customers instead of the investigation. While a $1 million loss would put other distilleries out of business, Westland was actually recently bought out by Remy Cointreau Group in 2016. Mark Gillespie, he's the host of Whiskey Cast, a podcast about whiskey, told the AP, quote, "If somebody tells you or if somebody tries to offer you a case of Westland whiskey right now, I'd call the cops." And it seems like Westland should maybe focus on the investigation as well as serving customers and also then protecting its supply chain. Just a thought.
Can't both be true. Yeah.
I thought so. Just like, we're not going to worry about that. It's in the past. Like,
we got
really?
other fish to fry.
My goodness.
Yeah. And also, like, are people offering you a case of whiskey a lot?
I guess I don't run.
I wouldn't ask questions.
You would just run.
I'm just going to take it
and run.
You just check the seal, though.
Yeah, I don't know. This story was a little bit weird. Something doesn't smell right to me. I wish that there were more details available. There really aren't at this point. But $1 million worth of product is handed over based solely on the use of fraudulent documentation. It seems odd to me that this like highly valuable inventory was handed out to someone in a carrier truck.
Yeah, who had the right papers.
Yeah, and in order to know what to say or what that paperwork should look like or what it should contain or when to arrive, wouldn't that point to like somebody being involved who knows a lot about the process?
Smelling an inside job, are you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I find it like, I mean, there are a couple things that could have taken place here. Right.
Are you going to cybersecurity steal the dog?
Well, that's when we talk about social engineering. That's a big, it's not just cybersecurity. It's for these types of things as well. And replicating these types of documents, all these innocent types of questions that you can get through email or somebody telemarketer, this is part of their process. So all those little tidbits of information could have been used to formulate these false documents. You just got to be so careful.
Really just calling someone on the dock saying like, hey, we lost the paperwork for our files. If you could send us another copy of it.
It could be that simple, or it could just be, hey, who do you use? I'm calling from XYZ company. Who is your shipping company of choice right now?
Okay.
And you just build on that.
Well,
and bam.
Okay.
12,000 bottles.
But the other thing that I think you have to think about is, you might be, we look at today's workforce environment and how spotty it is for a lot of companies, how many gaps there are, how much turnover there is. So to me, it also suggested like maybe a lesson in how much we rely on folks to trust their gut because they're very experienced or they've been there for a while. This is like precisely why you're seeing companies invest in technology that kind of like overrides errors, right? If you don't have the machine whisperer, you don't have somebody there who can hear that the machine doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Or somebody there that knows that this is not our guy from the shipping company. But I mean, I'm like not trying to like...
I'm not oversimplifying it. I mean, there's technology available now to vet people at your dock to make sure the right person's getting it.
Right. And I just think like, and if you can't rely on like a seasoned, well-trained workforce, it's been there for a while, they have some experience and they trust their gut and they make decisions based on their gut. Like maybe the new guy doesn't go to his gut because he doesn't have nothing raises a red flag to him about this situation or this interaction with this person who clearly doesn't work for the transit company. And so, I think that's like part of the issue here is that you have to consider, do you have safeguards against that scenario? The person that is charged with that task, are they, do they have enough context? Do they have enough experience? And if they don't, what are your safeguards? Obviously we talked about there are, digital documentation verification systems that can be used here. I mean, there are scanners where you have to match a code to something that's produced by the carrier company, all of that stuff. They said it was sophisticated. Maybe that stuff all got knocked off. But if you have some layers in place, I think it's far less likely to see that happen.
Well, as we saw in the Guy Fieri, Sammy Hagar tequila heist, I believe,
Yeah.
or not tequila, it was the other one, the more expensive one. Maybe mezcal.
Mezcal. Yeah.
They had proper tracking in place, and that was kind of cloned and made it seem like they were going in the right direction. So, I mean, the more sophisticated the technology, the more sophisticated the criminals. But it's still good to have those in place in case something like this comes.
Yeah,
up.
make it hard for them at least.
Make
right?
it a little harder. Yeah. Well, Jeff, one bright spot of this story is that I had never heard of a 10-year Garyana whiskey, and once available, I'm interested in trying it, So, I mean, hey, maybe a little bit more awareness of the product.
Well, that was my take. Just I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious now as to how it is, what it is. So maybe no press, or what is it? All press is good press.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So definitely helping them there. I think it's also interesting, and I would advocate the same thing that you guys were talking about in terms of the traceability technology that is out there, layered with the individuals, having different checks and balances in place. Scanning a barcode instead of signing a receipt, whatever the case might be. All of those things can play a role here. What's interesting is, just based on what everybody's been saying, the word of mouth is almost a bigger inhibitor for the thieves to try to resell this stuff than any technology may have been. I mean, it's been so well publicized and notarized. It's been picked up by a lot of different mainstream media outlets that it'll be tough to move this product if you don't know what you want to do beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting there. I'll plant one little conspiracy theory
Ooh.
I thought was very interesting. I have there is no proof of this.
Okay.
I am
All the better.
Just thinking out loud more than anything. But we heard with all the tariffs and everything that was going on, Canada was just bashing all of these American liquor products. They were not putting it on the shelves. We're not going to do it. We're going to go with Canadian brands. This is in the Pacific Northwest.
Smuggle it over the border?
I don't know. Maybe there's still some sort of desire for these American spirits that somebody is taking advantage of. I have almost like the Goodfellas picture, where they're selling cigarettes out of the back of the truck type of thing. I don't know. But it's that kind of caught my attention too. That's a reach. I get it.
I don't think that's a reach. That's why
interesting
it's a good conspiracy
geography.
theory.
So
No, I think that's a really interesting take. I mean, I guess if you're closer to the border,
maybe,
keep it an even more watchful eye. Man, I'm upset I didn't even think of that angle. Well done. But
let's get some Garyana whiskey.
Yeah, what if you know a guy? No,
there's still like 4,500 bottles, cases, whatever of this out there. They only got not quite half of it.
Okay. So still available. Well, our next most popular story this week kind of surprised me as well. A 50-year-old skateboarding legend hit 65 miles per hour as he flew down a 22-story building. Sandro Diaz is a 50-year-old Brazilian skateboarding legend. He recently made history when he, quote, dropped in from the curved facade of a 22-story building in Brazil. The Centro Administrativo Fernando Ferrari, or CAF building in Porto Alegre, is nearly 300 feet tall and has been kind of a white whale in the skateboarding community. Well, not anymore. After about 800 panels of plywood, 115 metric tons of ramp materials, and about a month of work, the building became one big ramp. In a stunt dubbed the Red Bull Building Drop, Diaz hit 64 miles per hour after dropping in from nearly 70 meters high. Diaz experienced a peak force of about 3.9 Gs, the equivalent of supporting nearly 4 times his own body weight. The team had to lay plywood down because, while the building looked like a really cool big ramp, it was kind of cracked and weathered on the exterior, and that's no good if you're going to ride down on a skateboard. Guinness World Records representatives were on hand to certify a pair of records, quote, the tallest drop into a temporary quarter pipe and the fastest speed on a temporary quarter pipe. Anna, of all the companies, Red Bull just really understands its go big or go home branding.
Sure. First of all, I want to backtrack to this part where you said the building has been a white whale in the skateboarding community.
Did you look at the building? So the building, it really has been like, so they talk about how for Sandro Diaz for the last 13 years, and for a lot of people in Brazil, they've looked at it and just, it's one of those things where they just imagine like, man, could you imagine skating down that
That
thing?
could be a cool ramp.
Yeah. And like, what's crazy is what I like about Red Bull is you can pitch them these crazy ideas and they're like, well, what if we did it?
Yeah, I'm glad I actually watched the video because my first thought when I read this was like, how exactly does he stop?
Yeah.
And
in a giant pile of foam.
yeah, like the whole thing kind of turned my stomach. But when he got to the like wall of foam blocks and crashed into it, I was like, well, I would do that. I mean, that
yeah.
I would just take a running start from
not,
flat ground.
Not dropping from 70 meters or whatever. That is wild.
No.
Yeah.
And like, you know me, I mean, I have like mixed feelings about this Red Bull performance endurance stuff. Like on the one hand, it's very cool. And this one in particular, I think provided its own kind of fun lesson on calculus, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
like
just a feat
engineering.
of engineering. Yeah.
On the other hand, you know, I always worry like what happens if and when one of these spectacles goes completely wrong and somebody dies and then Red Bull's brand is tied to it for however long.
Yeah.
I do feel like they are taking a risk when they do this, and maybe they figure this is just like high risk, high reward, and that's just what they're gonna do. But it does seem like it's great marketing until the day that it's like the worst thing that could ever happen to your brand.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, it wouldn't be my strategy, but I guess I see why they do it. They get a lot of eyeballs on this stuff. So
they get a lot of eyeballs, but you're not wrong. Like if you remember when Red Bull did that space jump, the space jump was performed by a skydiver named Felix Baumgartner. And on another, just this year, he was doing another stunt. He was paragliding and he died because he lost control.
He did?
He lost control of the paraglider. So, I mean, and that wasn't necessarily a Red Bull branded thing, but it was like, hey, these stunts, you know, they are extreme for a reason, right? Like, I mean, they're very dangerous, and there can be the highest price to pay for some of them.
Yeah, and I don't know that, like, I mean, I feel like you take some risks when you're trying to tie your brand with like extreme behavior, and like, you know, we've seen lawsuits for less. It just, I don't know.
I mean, I give them a lot of credit for having the audacity to just be like, what if we made driving things off a cliff a sport? You know, and it's, I don't know. It's, Jeff, to me, it also makes me think about, if you remember those Mountain Dew commercials from the 90s, like what if Mountain Dew, like Be Extreme, was more than just commercials, and they actually, rather than kind of sponsoring the X Games and stuff, but like, I feel like they were ahead of Red Bull on this, but they didn't go as far. And so they kind of just like faded away a little bit with what could have been kind of a bigger opportunity.
Potentially, sure. I'm with Anna a little bit. When I see some of this stuff, it's kind of like, well, he did the thing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But now what?
Yeah.
And in this case, that was until I looked into it a little bit more, and it's not just about the thing, but the thing that can lead to other things.
Yes.
And in this case,
what?
Yeah. Yeah. So when you look at his skateboard, that's what I was most drawn to. And when they describe it, they're like, well, it's a traditional skateboard with a couple modifications. Well, the modifications are actually pretty impressive when you look at it. He did use a pretty typical, what they call a deck. These are new terms to me as well. I'm not a skateboarding guy, big surprise.
You've never heard the term deck?
No. I didn't.
That's all right.
I was not a skateboarder.
Yeah.
In any way. But he did use one that's designed for high speeds. He used wider wheels that provided greater stability and control at these higher speeds. He upgraded the bearings to NSK bearings, friend of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're known for their durability. And he used wider trucks, which are like what holds the wheels. Yeah. Basically. So there were all of these different modifications that went in there. They're not big ones. But in all, they allowed a human being to go drop, 70 meters at 65 miles an hour and land safely.
Yeah.
So there is something somebody will take away from this. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
To be honest, I have no clue. If somebody does, we'll send you a nice little prize package from this Day of Manufacturing podcast, all the T-shirts and cozies you can handle.
Cool.
So let me know, jeff@ien.com, what you think is the thing this will lead to, and we'd love to talk about that.
It's like any racing story that we do, right? Although it's easier to see how something that is achieved in racing will move into a modern vehicle, like a regular production vehicle, right? Only this is a different scale, smaller market, the skateboarding market, which is a very large, lucrative market, but still compared to like the automobile or automotive market.
This will push some envelope.
Yeah.
Again, it's not as easy to see or visualize as some of those other things, but somebody's going to see this and go, I can use it for this.
Well,
the other thing I will say, being afraid of heights, seeing the start of that video when he was looking down, no thank you.
For me, the most exciting part of it is always when you go from sitting on the rooftop to going off the side of the roof and like he, rappel down to that tiny ledge. Yeah. And then, he kind of just stands there looking up and he's kind of just, calming himself or, going still. And you're right. It is just straight down. But I mean, there's an incredible amount of training. That's the other thing. It's like a 20-minute video that Red Bull put out. I highly recommend it because it shows a lot of the training that went into it. He would work using a weighted vest so that way he would understand those nearly 4 Gs his body went under or underwent. It's not just you see some of these stunts and you just think like, okay, one and done. But I mean, this is something that he's been working towards, his entire life, really. Producer Eric found a couple of things. So base jumper Yuli Gagenschans died from internal injuries after a wind gust caused his parachute to fail during a Red Bull sponsored jump in 2009. And an off-road motorcycle racer, Kurt Caselli, died from a fatal crash at the Baja 1000 race in 2013. So we have seen some of these major sponsored events, be deadly, and it is very, very tragic. But I guess it's, these are also people that embrace that life, and that mentality. And honestly, it was probably the way they would want to or expect to go out, but still very tragic.
I just wonder if like now with our like more online culture where a lot of people are like watching this live, how people would feel seeing that take place, because
seeing it take place across your logo. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be hard to unsee, Yeah. All right. Well, our most popular story this week: fatal workplace incident. Robotic machine crushes manager. A machine crushed a bakery manager at a Palermo's pizza factory near Milwaukee, killing a 45-year-old worker. First responders attempted life-saving measures, but ultimately pronounced the worker, Robert Cherone, dead at the scene. The worker joined Palermo's in 2023. According to LinkedIn, he worked as a sanitation manager for nearly 2 years before transitioning to a role as bakery manager this January. He previously worked as a production manager at O&H Danish Bakery, and he was a production supervisor at Jones Dairy Farm. Palermo's released a statement calling the accident a, quote, terrible incident and noted that it was cooperating with the investigation. Palermo's had just opened this 250,000 square foot production facility earlier this year. And there's not a lot of information with this story, which really makes it difficult other than talking about the inherent safety parts of it. But could this be an example of a lack of training potentially on new equipment with a facility coming online so recently?
I mean, it's certainly something you have to consider. I too want to be very I don't want to speculate about why this person lost their life. I mean, we really don't know exactly. It seemed like he had a lot of experience in manufacturing and managerial positions. So you would think this person probably was hopefully well trained.
Yeah.
But I do think the fact that this is a brand new facility could be a factor here. Back in 2024, when Palermo's announced that it would be expanding production by building this facility, the CEO talked about the 50 positions that it would add. And he said that those being created were, quote, skilled labor roles which require specific training and are key roles in our manufacturing process. So obviously the company, I think, set out to apply very specific training methods within these production roles. So you wonder if they've been able to achieve that. I know you mentioned that facility just opened a couple of months ago. doing a quick search online, I saw that there are definitely still some positions available at this plant, which is not a surprise given the current climate for the workforce.
Yeah.
But you do wonder if there were people doing double duty or if there were positions that were yet to be filled and some workarounds taking place, because when you build a brand new facility like that, and that's a big capital investment, and you schedule it to open and you're maybe a little bit light on that workforce, I mean, it's hard to say we have to wait, right?
Yeah, you're beholden to a schedule.
And again, I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened here. I'm hoping that we will find out more as the investigation takes place. It sounds like Palermo is working with investigators. I'm assuming they are conducting their own investigations to see what happened here. So it's hard to know if this is related to new equipment, or equipment that it is being operated for the first time, for the first few weeks. But I think it definitely, as a takeaway, serves as a reminder to be vigilant, especially right now when companies are looking at automation, I think, more closely. I talked to somebody this week at PAC Expo who said specifically that the food industry rebounded quicker than any other manufacturing vertical after COVID when it came to investing in automation equipment. And I think part of that is due to the fact that they do have such severe issues with talent gaps, and just trying to find ways to do things in a more efficient way because they just don't have the people to do it.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there listening, again, like, you know, we hate to talk about these stories because they're hard to talk about. Somebody lost their life, and that's horrible. The least we can do is try to learn something from that and take something away to our own plants on how we operate.
Well, and reinforce the idea that absolute safety and automation is an unachievable goal. Jeff, manufacturers need to fight or train against complacency. They need to train against misjudgment and skill atrophy, which sometimes comes or is inherent when you have automation. And I mean, I think those are things that, if we could use as a moment to reinforce, are very notable.
Well, excuse me. I think the bigger thing of those that I took away from this too, and I did a little bit of research just based on the other stories that we've covered recently on the podcast. Robotics are not a silver bullet when it comes to everything, especially not safety. Now, there are ways that robotics help in terms from an ergonomic perspective and saving employees' backs, handling chemicals and other things of that, other hazardous materials. But they're still operating in an environment where bad things can happen if you're not paying attention or if they're not properly set up or programmed or whatever the case may be. And I think sometimes there's a misnomer there when you implement these robotics. Well, it's all automatic, it's all automated, it's safer, it's easier. Well, it does help productivity and it should be more efficient and all of those things, but it's still a piece of equipment. And it can malfunction, it can be set up improperly, all of those things. So it doesn't necessarily alleviate that safety dynamic. It doesn't make it worse, but it doesn't necessarily make it less either.
Well, and to Michael Collins' story earlier, we typically lean into working with robotics as a pro, a reason that, you're going to be at the forefront of technology working in manufacturing. And I think the reason that we need to be the most well-trained and the most skilled with these positions is to prevent these stories from happening and potentially prevent, workers from staying away from the industry because, the one thing they were maybe drawn to could all of a sudden become a negative. All right. Before we jump into In Case You Missed It this week, the stories maybe not as popular on the site, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. We have another word from our sponsor, Redzone. This week's episode is brought to you by Redzone. In today's manufacturing environment, challenges are evolving quickly, and businesses who aren't taking proactive steps to mitigate them risk falling behind. With that, businesses are desperate to target OEE, improve staffing and retention, control costs, and enhance culture. In this exclusive video, Claremont Foods discusses some of the exciting ways in which manufacturers are leveraging the latest tools to make productivity gains. So, watch Claremont Foods shares the secret to OEE right now. You can download the video with the link in the live chat as well as the link that you found in the body copy. All right, in case you missed it, story is not as popular on the site, but could still make a big impact on the industry going forward. Jeff, what do you have for us this week?
So I picked an article. It said police pulled over a self-driving Waymo for an illegal turn, but they had no one to ticket. I thought this was kind of a funny story. So police in Northern California were understandably perplexed when they pulled over a Waymo taxi after it made an illegal U-turn, only to find no driver behind the wheel and therefore no one to ticket. This was the San Bruno Police Department. They basically posted this and it went viral. It was a late Saturday and they were basically looking for drunk drivers. And this Waymo made an illegal U-turn right in front of them. They pulled it over. And to me, it was very interesting because the police obviously had a good sense of humor about it and posting this to everything else. A lot of people had questions in terms of how did the taxi know to pull over? And that is part of the programming, the software, the cameras, all that. It recognizes the police lights and all that. So what it actually reinforced to me, and I don't know about autonomous vehicles. I don't know where they're going to fit in down the road. I'm not sure. Sometimes I worry about this being too much of a crutch for what is already a population of bad drivers. But I thought this was actually very encouraging. The fact that this vehicle realized it needed to stop. Like it reacted to a very human dynamic of operating a vehicle on commercial streets, and it obeyed what it needed to do. So even though it made the mistake and made an illegal U-turn like any of us have done, I've got one of those tickets in my history.
Yeah.
I thought it was neat that it did respond to it. And I also appreciate the fact that the police department didn't get super bent out of shape about it and just processed it in a normal fashion, had some fun socially with it and all that. So,
well, not I, Jeff. I always obey all known and posted traffic laws, and I would never
that's
break
because
them.
you're always looking at your GPS and you're very focused on the route that it's telling you to go on.
Everyone that reached out was on my side on that one. Normally, everyone's just like, Jeff's got you on this one. Gonna say universally, they're like, yeah, tap.
I'm very glad that everybody else who did that was on your side.
I missed it, guys. Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, there's a treat for you on the previous episode. I told you about GPS ferry problem. Yes, because we went for a walk like right after it happened, and I was still like real hot about it.
It made me mad for you, like secondhand. It was just I would have gone crazy.
Well, this story also makes me crazy, Jeff, because these self-driving cars really put a lens on this very unique who's responsible, right? Because when it's come to cars, particularly technology in cars, and when there's an accident, who's at fault? Is it the car and the technology inside, or is it the driver? And we've always had to kind of argue that point because there was a driver inside. And now there's no driver, and the technology is absolutely responsible. So there have to be changes in laws and liability as to who's responsible. And it's either going to be the company that's operating that Waymo or the company that manufactured it. And I don't know what it's going to be, but there's going to have to be an entire change.
Well, the article does mention that. Some of the things that are in process, I think it is going to go back to the operator, not the manufacturer.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens.
Okay. I mean, hey, make sure your coding is solid before you let those out on the road. Matthew, who's watching us live, good to hear from you, Matthew, says it reminds him of some scenes from Knight Rider, the Knight Rider TV show, and agreed. Man, what was it? Kit. And Anna, I want to get your thoughts on this story, but Doug, who's also joining us live, says, you were at Pack Expo, Anna? He just got home this morning.
What?
After taking a red eye last night. Good to hear that someone else takes red eyes, Doug. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Doug, I'm sorry that we missed each other. We didn't actually have a booth, so it would have been maybe hard for us to track each other down, but I was like sweating like crazy all over so much walking.
It was, it was also kind of, we weren't planning on going to Pack until kind of late.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it was like, we should probably go to Pack. Yes. And then thank you for volunteering. It was, I really appreciate it, especially after hearing bouncing back and forth between halls outside in that Vegas heat.
Yeah.
That's a pass for me.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the Waymo story?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too. And I know you're right. There's like a lot of like legal stuff that needs to get worked out with these vehicles. But in the meantime, even though they are taxis right now, this is a test program. And I think that's the big takeaway for me is that if these municipalities agree to these test programs, they can't expect this technology to be perfect because it's not yet. That's what it's doing out there, is making illegal U-turns.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, people were bent out of shape that the company didn't get a ticket.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this is sort of part and parcel of what we're doing.
Yeah. Anna, in case you missed it this week.
I picked a story about Lufthansa, which is an airline company, basically, a carrier. They said they're going to replace 4,000 jobs using AI and digitalization. That's by 2030. That's their goal. Even as they're reporting strong demand for air travel and predicting stronger profits in the years ahead, they say most of these jobs lost would be in Germany, and the focus would be on administrative rather than operational roles. So Lufthansa said it was moving to deepen the integration among member airlines and is reviewing which activities will no longer be necessary in the future, for instance, due to duplication of work. It said in a statement that profound changes brought about by digitalization and artificial intelligence would increase efficiency across business areas and activities. They said they expected significantly increased profitability by the end of the decade, and they are readying what is called the largest fleet modernization in the company's history. I looked at this a little bit skeptically, I guess. I didn't hear a lot there that was really compelling to me, and it made me think. I don't know. It made me question whether this is a reality or not. We hear so much lip service being paid to AI. It also seems like a great way to leverage the buzz around AI.
Yeah.
Make your stock go up.
Yeah.
Maybe.
AI instead of cost cutting.
Yeah. But I mean, looking like you're an early adopter and that you've already found the way to use this technology to dramatically cut your employment costs. And I couldn't help but wonder if they truly have a plan in place, or if they're thinking, well, we have till 2030. We'll probably figure it out along the way. Or are they just applying the AI badge to classic machine learning stuff that's already been on the market for a while? Some companies are doing that.
Yeah.
Or C, did they really have this much low-hanging fruit?
Yeah.
I mean, all of those are kind of, I don't know. I was not that impressed because I feel like this is maybe not reality. But what did you guys take away from this?
Well, I thought anything that could make that process, air travel, any more efficient, I'm on board with. But I'm always skeptical as to how well it's going to work, because you could argue that their rebooking service is already a form of AI, right? Like, your flight is canceled, you're automatically rebooked on what is supposed to be the most convenient and fastest way home, and then you're reissued another ticket. But we all know that is not the case. You're rebooked 2 days later. You don't have a hotel voucher. I think there's a long way to go. And arguably you could be like, oh, well, that happened automatically. So that's AI.
That's AI too, yeah.
And so it's just okay, what exactly is it going to look like? But I mean, it's something that we've heard throughout the industry and in several industries, is that AI is going to come for administrative tasks. And I think you're right in terms of the lip service, where it's really easy to say that right now and not have a true understanding of exactly what that's going to look like. Jeff, and also some people on the website were commenting about this story, and they thought 4,000 is going to be low. They're it's going to be more than 20,000 jobs.
People are all over the place though on their predictions,
Yeah.
and it's based on what exactly. I think a lot of it is fear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any doubt that AI is going to significantly impact the workplace, but how would you be able to predict how many jobs and based on what the capabilities are now in 2030 and I don't know. I'm just not.
Well, because they have such a head start on it, they should let all the employees know, hey, just so you know, we got you earmarked. So start upskilling. Jeff.
Because that's going to motivate employees to work harder and do better, right?
Yeah.
This, in my opinion, is 100% for stockholders. That is what this is about. This is because you're basically ignoring your internal workforce and basically saying, well, we got machines that can probably do this better than what you're doing. Real motivational approach there. The other thing is, as a potential consumer, The last thing I want to hear from an airline is that there will be fewer human beings to help me with my problems.
Agreed.
That does not make me want to use this airline more, knowing that they're relying less on human beings for problem solving.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very interesting thing to publicize. The other thing is maybe they've got some big job cuts coming and they're using AI to sort of cover their motivations a little bit and not make it look like purely cost cutting. It's no, we've got this wonderful AI to plug in.
Well, exactly.
It's a very curious statement to go public with, in my opinion.
Yeah, just like a very easy way to be like, no, actually, we're innovative.
Yeah. No,
So
it's because we're a step ahead. On the topic of steps, Anna, Doug actually says he did 14 to 18,000 steps per day. And since we were talking about self-driving vehicles, he found it interesting that in the Vegas Loop, those Teslas in the tunnels, they were actually all staffed by human drivers.
Oh, they were? I was too afraid to do that, Doug, because I thought that they were autonomous and I just don't trust the Musk. So I didn't get in one. I was like, I'll take my chances with my feet.
Yeah. But to the steps though, I think like 14 to 18,000 steps a day. That means it's a good trade show, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was right there with you. It was insane.
Man, I haven't gone to check out those Teslas in the tunnels ever since we had a coworker who went down as soon as it opened, very unimpressed. And I was like, good enough for me. Like just a few less stairs in the entire trade show experience. Well, in case you missed it this week, I'm not sure if you guys saw this story, but engineers made a working parachute out of a sheet of plastic, and I thought that was pretty cool. So engineers from Polytechnique Montreal have created a new parachute concept based off of the Japanese art of kirigami, which we've talked about before on the podcast. It's a simple approach that has a wide variety of potential applications, everything from humanitarian aid to space exploration. So kirigami, for those that don't remember, is the technique where you modify the mechanical properties of a sheet of material by making these precise folds and cuts to it. Think of it as children making snowflakes out of paper, right? Oversimplification, but making things out of paper. So the team cut the plastic sheet in a closed loop kirigami pattern. The pattern gives the sheet of plastic new mechanical properties. In a free fall, it makes the shape of an upside down bell when any type of weight or object is attached to the center, kind of dragging it down. Unlike traditional parachutes, it quickly stabilizes, doesn't pitch, regardless of the release angle. So I chose this story because, this could be used in anything from air delivery in remote areas to Mars exploration. In the near future, again, we said humanitarian aid deliveries, water, food, and medicine, especially since this parachute is so low cost to make. I thought this was incredible. I always I'm always a sucker for biomimicry and engineering. I'm also a sucker for kirigami and how, when you think of making functional objects out of a piece of paper, you think it's a toy, a fun, a craft. But when it could be applied to something like this by laser cutting a sheet of plastic, I think it's wild. And basically this laser cutter looks like a 3D printer. It's all programmatic and how it's cut. And it's very lightweight, very simple. And now the team is working on different patterns, right? So how these chutes would fly, could descend in a spiral or kind of glide before dropping. So that way you could have a little bit more of a planned descent. I don't know. I picked this story because it is incredible. They also talked about, when you talk about Martian exploration, right? So you could basically have an autonomous payload all go out at the same time, but based on the shape of the chutes, they would land at different times in different spots. So you could organize them as they were coming down. Anyway, I thought this was an incredible story, really cool. And it comes down to somebody looking at a sheet of paper going, I wonder if we could make that fall better. Jeff, I don't know if you had a chance to check out the story, but what'd you think?
I think that the two questions that come to mind is, I understand for non-human cargo, this makes a ton of sense. You can steer a parachute. So I think with a human, that would be the one thing I'd be curious, does it still have that maneuverability if you needed it? Mm-hmm. The other thing is it reusable? You can repack a chute, a parachute. So would this material allow for that? Or once it's deployed, just because of the nature of it and looking at the video, can you reuse it again?
Right.
So I think those will be kind of interesting developments to see going forward. I think anytime you can figure out, a better version of the wheel, that's always positive in terms of the way this can slow things down, probably quicker to produce, more reliable, things of that nature. It's not going to tear like a chute could. So definitely a lot of benefits there. A couple questions, but it's initial stages. So
well, and I wonder if how it's made and how cost effective it's made, is this seen as more of a disposable chute? I mean, because if we're talking about like humanitarian missions, we're talking about just dropping it anyways, and those chutes likely aren't coming back. But I mean, those are great points. I like in terms of steering it. I certainly don't want to be the first human testing out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you had a chance to check it out or the video, because when I was looking at the still images of it, essentially the image at the top of the article looks like a very expensive colander. But then when you see it in action, it works in a way that it makes you have to watch the video a couple of times to like appreciate what's happening.
Yeah. It was very interesting to me because just something I never thought about was like reinventing the parachute, but it's not a perfect design.
Right.
I agree that humans maybe not for this at this time, but do you feel like it actually would stand in maybe more as like a cheaper, like disposable drone?
Yeah.
Versus like what a parachute would do. But if you need it to be very precise, it sounds like you can do that. And then if it doesn't come back, it doesn't come back.
You mean like drone delivery?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like anything that, because I mean, when you talk about delivery, it's packaging materials that are so such a big expense. And I mean, if you could just put a tiny little parachute on it, make sure it drops in the right spot, and you could maybe even recycle the thing. I mean, that's incredible.
It is cool looking. Yeah.
Definitely check it out online if you get a chance. And cut a little spiral on a piece of paper, see if you can make it work. It's got to work better than
don't attach anything of importance to it though.
No. We're like a little army guy, nothing crazy. Just start small. All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, let's do our final thoughts. Anna, what's your final thought this week?
So I think I've mentioned this many times about how much walking I did at PAC, but I did notice this year that like one of the things I appreciate the most about the evolution of the trade show vibe in the 20 years since I went to my first trade show, which is hard to believe, but is I feel like people have kind of gotten to the point where they're like, you know what, forget it. I'm going to wear actual shoes that have soles, and I don't feel like most of the men at the show felt like they had to wear like their Allen Edmonds to the show. They're like wearing things with actual, and women too. You don't see high heels really anymore. I think we've all reached the point where we're like, hey, we don't have to
suffer
to this extent just to be at work. I mean, it makes it such a better experience when you're like on something flat and with a sole. And so good on everyone for not feeling trapped in the shoe. The shoe, I don't even know what that is. Patriarchy is not the word. The history of the shoe that has like dominated the trade shows.
The shoe-archy.
The shoe-archy.
Yeah. It reminds me, talking about your first trade show, the first trade show I went to, it was mandated that I had to wear dress shoes, and I wore them. And then I wore them for like 4 days walking around Orlando, got blisters, bought Band-Aids for those blisters, and tried to expense them. It was like $3.
This was not at this company.
Not at this company. No. This is 20 years ago. This company's waiting on. Oh, God, this might even be 30 years ago now. But it's getting close. But they wouldn't expense the Band-Aids. And I was just like, come on.
You did this to me.
You mandated the shoe. The shoe gave me blisters. Just give me the Band-Aids.
Oh, man.
That's why back in the day, you got all those taxi receipts.
That's right. Oh, man. Those days, right? Hey, could I get an extra receipt? You tipping? Yeah, I'm tipping. Okay, here you go. Take as many as you want. Matthew says that the parachute sounds something that could be applied to, I don't know if you saw the story, but recovered these new tumbleweed rovers that they're developing, where basically it looks kind of like a giant wire ball, and it works like a tumbleweed as a rover, so it could be a low-cost alternative.
Oh, interesting. No wheels and just kind of rolls around?
Just rolls around, yeah, like for Martian exploration. And at first, they look really small, and then they had videos of like ones that are human size. But that's actually a really good point, Matthew. I mean, we need to get Polytechnique Montreal and whoever did the tumbleweed talking to each other, because there's a real Oh, there's a real opportunity to synergize.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I will. Yep. I'm sorry. My final thoughts this week is, there's a lot of commentary online as to whether or not it's personal or professional or social, and just in general, don't be a jerk. I'm selling a couple of things on Facebook Marketplace for some family members, and one is a piece of jewelry that's typically used for very personal reasons, and the type of jewelry was called into question by one person in particular. And basically the person said, like, hey, maybe if you didn't skimp on how the jewelry was made, maybe that would show that you had a better commitment, and then maybe this relationship would have worked out. And I was just like...
Someone said all that?
Someone said that to me. And I was just like, I just replied like, that is hurtful. I hope you have a better day and week, and do a better job going forward. And then this person wound up like writing back like, I'm so sorry. She was very apologetic. And I was just like, hey, stop being a dick online. No one's life is better by being mean to somebody, especially if you don't know them. I mean, you're not making the world a better place. You're making it arguably a worse place because you want to be funny, like a funny troll to somebody on Marketplace who is probably going through a rather dark time in their life. And I don't know, I just figured if I had a moment to like help some people out, just, be a little more cool.
Yeah, or if you want to make fun of David, do it to his face like we do. It's fine.
Yeah, or at david@ien.com with "to my face" in the subject line. Or to my inbox, I guess. But I was just, hey, there have been this experience on Facebook Marketplace overall has been a win because the people that want to trade, just like, I'll give you $100 and a pack of cigarettes. But then, when you talk back and you're just like, is it a full pack? Is it a full pack of cigarettes? And then they don't want to play back. It's just like, hey, if you're going to be funny, let's be funny together. Jeff, what are your final thoughts and any tips other than just staying off a Marketplace to be able to, like, that's the only way to stay away from trolls online is to never be online.
That's my approach. I don't do social media, so
Yeah.
I don't really have to deal with that.
Yep. Well, hopefully this other person doesn't do social media anymore either because she's not making the world a better place. Your final thoughts, so overall.
Just a shout out to my wonderful wife. It is actually 15 years ago today we went on our first date.
Whoa.
And tomorrow will be our 10th wedding anniversary.
Man.
So, thank you. Just thanks for all the stuff. No, it's been great, and we're actually going up to the North Woods. I will not be here next week.
Oh, okay.
Taking the week off. So,
well, congratulations.
yeah, it's good
Sounds
stuff.
great.
15 years?
15 years.
Jeez. If it's not like kids like graduating, then it's like, you guys have been together 15 years? That's incredible.
Still tease her about the $18 drink she bought at the bar.
Oh.
No, it wasn't that much.
Oh, okay.
I remember it being that much. It was some blue weird thing.
Jeez.
Then she didn't drink it all. I'm like, what are we doing here? No, it's good.
Just like, we'll work on that. Well, congratulations. That's really something to aspire to. All right. Well, sorry.
No.
No? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't, just making sure. All
Yep.
right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If, Matthew, Brian, Doug, everybody that's on the podcast right now on YouTube could give us a thumbs up, that would help us out a lot. If you want to email the podcast, you could write either of us at Jeff, Anna, or David@ien.com with email the podcast or to the face in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily, weekly newsletters. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first, and subscribe to us on YouTube. We're at IEN Magazine, so you can join us live every Thursday. Next week it'll be Anna, myself, and question mark.
Oh, mystery guest.
We'll see. Maybe we should get on that.
Should probably find our mystery guest. Yeah.
That's right. All right. For Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.